everybody. Thank you for being here. I would like to introduce Ms. Kiersten Taylor, who most of you know. I've had the pleasure of having her in multiple marketing classes, and it's been a pleasure to have you in those. And in her words, we'd like to introduce, she is planning to do how color theory affects consumer purchasing. So really interesting, especially from a consumer perspective. So, would you have the floor?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so like she said, we're going to talk about how color theory affects consumer purchasing and why this is really important in the marketing industry to have this knowledge and kind of apply it to all the work that is being done in that industry. So here's just a little agenda of all the things that we're going to talk about today. So first we're going to discuss what color theory is as well as why it matters, and how color harmony kind of plays into color theory. Then we're going to talk on some color associations and the feelings that go along with these colors. This is more on a general basis, so it can be applied to pretty much everyone. Then we're going to discuss neuromarketing, which is something that is very up and coming, some emotional influences that consumers feel about products, how color can be used for audience targeting, brand recognition, packaging, the website and app design, and color and lighting in brick and mortar stores, so when you're going into a physical location. So first we're going to discuss what color theory is and why it matters. So color theory is the study of how colors work together and the emotions and perceptions that consumers have over these colors. And color theory is used to pick which colors go well together and what colors are going to be used. So color can convey mood and messaging, so this is important to make sure that you're choosing the appropriate colors to really put out the mood that you're trying to discuss. A study showed that 17 to 50 milliseconds is all that it takes for a consumer to make their first impression, and 90% of initial judgments come from color alone. So color is really important just to really get consumers in and picking up your product. And it just has a lot of psychological and emotional effects that consumers feel, so it can really create a connection between the product or the brand with the consumer. So a large part of color theory is color harmony. So color harmony just explains why color combinations go well together and whether or not consumers feel like they are pleasing or not. So there's very much three key factors that go into color harmony, and this is pair preference, pair harmony, and the figural color. So your pair preference is just whether or not the consumers like the colors, not so much the pairing. So a lot of people have favorite colors. So in this instance, that would be like your pair preference. They just enjoy the certain colors that are a part of the marketing material, whereas color harmony is whether or not the colors pair well together. So whether or not a consumer has any emotion tied to either color, it's just whether or not they're seen to be going together well. So this is something that's very important to marketers specifically, just making sure that their messaging looks uniform and professional, and just making sure that everything looks unified. And then your figural color is how colors appear when they are laid against different backgrounds. So oftentimes you'll see an object be put against like a gray background versus a tan background, and they're going to look a little bit different. So just making sure that you have the right and appropriate background to make sure the color is what you want it to appear. So these principles just really shape how consumers react to products, and this is kind of just the basis of what color theory is and how color harmony plays into that. So now I'm going to touch on some color associations. These are very much general and broad, but they're usually the things most associated with them. So red is actually the first color that you see after birth, other than black and white. So this really just speaks to a lot of consumers and just individuals in general. Red generally represents a sense of urgency, passion, danger, and it is scientifically proven to increase the heart rate of like any individual that's seeing it. So then orange is known to spark creativity, sociability, and enthusiasm, so a lot of extroverts will like this color and get a lot of their energy from it when they're exposed. Yellow is the brightest color on the color spectrum and generally represents happiness, alertness, and clarity. And then pink has a multitude of representations, and some of the most popular ones are love, vulnerability, youth, and femininity. So we see this a lot after birth. A lot of young girls are associated with the color pink, And they're kind of just raised with this, and it's kind of associated with them their entire life. We see this in a lot of advertisements, and it's just used to kind of distinguish the two genders. So then blue represents trust and calmness and reliability, and is actually shown to decrease heart rate, so it has the opposite effect of red. And then green represents nature, health, and wealth. We see this in a lot of products. Green kind of represents nature, so natural ingredients and stuff like that. And also like money is green, so a lot of wealth is represented through green products. Purple represents luxury, creativity, and prestige. So this is due to historical times. A lot of garments were made for powerful figures through purple dye, but it was very hard to find and it was relatively expensive to put into products. So only the wealthy and prestige were able to wear purple garments. So that's where that gets its representation. And then black and white. Black is the absence of color and generally represents power and sophistication. So this is why we see a lot of black tie events where everyone's showing up in all black. It kind of just shows professionalism and sophistication. And then white is represented through purity and simplicity. So this is seen in a lot of like Western religious sacraments like baptism and first communion, as well as like weddings. And then white is known to make like spaces feel larger. So a lot of people will do that if they have a small space that they're trying to open up. So now I'm going to discuss neuromarketing. So neuromarketing is something that is new and upcoming in the marketing field. It really only became a thing in the later 2000s. So neuromarketing is the combination of neuroscience and marketing. And it utilizes fMRI machines to examine brain stimulation and when they're exposed to like products or other brands known as stimuli. So neuromarketing measures things such as like the facial expressions, eye movements, heart rate, and other physical reactions like your sweat glands. It's similar to like a polygraph test. If you've ever watched like a lie detector test, it kind of measures the same things. So then neuromarketing can help marketers kind of predict how consumers are going to react to their products or their branding before they're even put out on the market. So they can do a sample, do a little study, and just kind of have a general idea of how people are going to react. So in a study that was recently conducted, they did it with Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola hooked up some individuals to the machine and put their product in front of them, and it was known to increase their heart rate and their metabolism. And it actually helped to the point where once the product was out of their sight, the subjects were still experiencing the same sort of stimulation when the brand was talked about in front of them. So even when the brand or the object was absent, they had the same reactions. So just understanding that once they're exposed, they have the knowledge and they react similarly. So then there's some small emotional influences that are important for marketers to understand. So as stated in the beginning, color shapes the first impressions of products and brands, and 90% of those impressions come from color alone. So this is more than